So yeah, building off Pretty in Pink, which I think is a movie that really captures an era of high school, like we talked about. My movie, Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
All right.
Really captures an era in a completely weird, bizarre way, because it's a 90s movie that Richard Linklater made about the 70s that feels like it was shot in the year it's made about. Like
It's insane.
The vibe in this movie is immaculate.
Yeah.
Like, it is, I think, the perfect capture of an era and also of high school.
It's like the perfect vibe out movie.
Yeah.
Man. You just sit down and
I
put on
wasn't
Dazed and
expecting
Confused.
to like it.
I
Loved it.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was gonna be your cup of tea.
I didn't
Oh
either.
my god, I just saw it for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, when did we watch it? Like
2
a
weeks
month?
ago?
2 weeks? It feels longer than
3
2
weeks?
weeks ago.
4 weeks? A month?
Up to a
2
month
months?
ago?
Yeah.
I don't know how to tell time. But yeah, I'd never seen it.
Big little hand. Yeah, it's a
swear I'm
great
smart.
time. Great time.
It's charming. It's funny.
It's
you
very
get
charming.
lost in it. It's a very simple point A to point B story.
Yeah.
It all takes place in a day. But in that day, so many different characters come in and how you live with them for a little bit, and you're bopping around, and you're car to car to car. You get all the different cast of characters. There's like 30 characters
There's
in
so
this
many.
film,
And they're all memorable.
and it never
Very
feels
dissimilar,
cluttered.
I think,
Yeah.
to
Which
10
is-
Things. And honestly, all of the movies we talked about have a very, very small group of like main characters.
Yeah.
And then Dazed and Confused has like 100
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
characters.
I think this one does the best job of just encompassing the entire high school experience.
Yeah.
Like from so many different perspectives.
Yeah.
It's really great. It had a very tumultuous production.
Tumultuous.
Made Richard Linklater want to stop directing films.
Was
when
this
he
his
made
first movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he wanted to
Pop
quit
off.
after he made it. The
Yeah.
first big movie. But
Yeah.
he was like, I hated making this. My favorite character, Wooderson, played by Matthew McConaughey in this
Shocking.
film.
Shocking.
Fun fact about McConaughey in this film. This was his first role, and he wasn't supposed to have any dialogue.
Was it a
so
casting
what
director?
happens is he had moved to LA to pursue acting, and he had come back to Texas because he was like, fuck it, I don't really think this is going to work. And he randomly gets cast for this film because he still has an agent, and the agent's like, I think you're good for an extra. Like, his hair was long because he didn't have enough money to get a haircut, which is another
Bro,
fun
his
side
hair-
plot. And so they're just like, yeah, you could be in this movie, and he's supposed to be an extra, and on day one of the set, he's shooting the shit with Linklater, and Linklater's like, no, we got to give this guy dialogue, but they didn't write any dialogue really for him.
Could you imagine this movie
pretty
without
much-
him, though?
No, you can't. And pretty much everything he says in the movie is like either he wrote it or like off the cuff riffing with like everyone on set.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of this movie is
Yeah.
it feels so authentic and it feels so real, and we get so many different fun characters, like even
Yeah.
characters you can hate, like Ben Affleck's character.
Yeah.
You cringe.
King of the assholes.
Every
Ben
time he
Affleck
opens
is.
his mouth, it's cringe, but he gets his comeuppance.
Yeah.
Piper
Yeah.
Perry's character is very Piper Perry, lover in RoboCop. But,
Yeah.
like, in this film, she's an asshole. She's the hazer. And it feels, like, endearing maybe in the first scene for everyone else, but not for her.
Yeah,
She's mean.
but
And
it
then at
feels,
the
like,
end,
personal.
she's drunk and alone, and no one wants to be
But
with her. And I think she goes, like, everybody suck me when she's walking
Yeah.
away,
But
yes,
which
yes.
shows how much of an asshole
You said
she
it the
is.
best earlier, like before the movie. Like, yeah, like all these guys aren't perfect, but they all get everything that happens to them. Like
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey is
Yeah.
like, I get older and they stay the same, and it's like you'll
You know
be
what
in
I say
jail.
about them high school
Yeah,
girls.
yeah,
They get older.
I must say,
Yes,
it was
they
funny
may. Yes,
watching
they
this because Richard Linklater directed like my favorite movie of all time. So it's funny seeing like him before that.
Yeah.
The before trilogy.
It's
Best movie trilogy ever
I
made.
think he
so.
understands what's endearing about high school. It's not in the drama. It's not really in the cliques. A lot of these
It is
people
about the
jump
cliques,
from
though.
group to group, and then
Yeah.
there's fun moments in the car where, like, the one character who's like the nerdy guy, he's like, "I don't want to go to school to be a lawyer. I want to dance."
Yes.
So good.
Yes. Yeah,
But
yeah,
like this whole movie builds to this big party scene, and then we have it at the end, and every character gets wrapped up.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels so good when you
It's-
watch it. And then when you at the end, it's like the corniest ending. He's like, "Yeah, I might play football for you,
But
I'm
I'm
not
not
gonna sign
signing
this."
this.
And he crumples it up and throws it at
Yeah.
the coach, and
Yeah.
he just like walks away like this.
Again, high school movies
Yeah.
need to have the
Yeah,
scene,
let's
you
get
know?
'em.
Yeah.
The
You know what?
endearingness to it, you know.
Eric just said all the characters wrap up so nicely, and they do, but in such a surprising way because you don't realize, I think, how much is happening with each character because there's so many and you're bouncing from group to group and car to car and place to place. But then you get like towards the end of the movie and you realize like they've all kind of changed in the night, and they've all kind of had some like realizations about themselves, like, or their friends, and like they do have a little bit of character development.
Yeah.
And by the end, like it's all like wrapped up, and you're like, I didn't know that much happened,
And
but
the
it did.
The way it ends, where the kid comes home and his mom's like, "Okay, just this once," and he puts the headphones in,
Yeah.
and it's slow ride, and then the credits roll.
Yeah.
It's the
I
editing
love
in this
Guitar
is
Hero
great.
3.
The soundtrack in
Great,
this
great
film,
Guitar Hero soundtrack.
It is incredible. We don't need
27
that
minutes.
anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
It is incredible. It's just like everything about it works in junction with each other, from the soundtrack to like there's a scene where it's just slow ride playing where they're driving around and
Yeah.
there's no dialogue, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I need this 5-minute scene in this film.
Yeah.
It makes me feel the feels that I need going into the next
It's
scene.
just it's a great hangout movie where like not a lot's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You get to hang out with some cool characters, and you really feel like you're along for the ride. And
Yeah.
like you don't need to expect much. You just kind of have to sit there and let it just kind of happen in front of you.
This scene where the younger brother, and where the movie ends, I'm forgetting the character's name right now, but he walks into the beer distributor, and
yeah.
he's like, yeah, I got a job in the city, you know, the old 9 to 5, and the guy behind the counter goes, I feel that. Have a great night, sir. And you're like, how the yeah, and you're like, that captures the era though, because like I'm sure that guy didn't give a shit about selling beer to minors.
Yeah.
And he goes across the street. He gets the Ben Affleck. Like, I don't know. Just everything. This movie offshoots in a million directions. I could talk about my favorite character, which is Slater. The George Washington, where he's like, and Martha had a fat bowl for him every day. And I'm not talking about oatmeal, man.
He's so good.
Are you cool, man? Am I cool about what?
Okay.
He's so good.
The best line in the movie is when McConaughey's in the car and he's like, hey, man, you got a joint? The kid's like, no.
No.
Be a lot cooler if you did.
Yeah, it's just it's so goddamn quotable. It's just it's
so
such
funny.
a good
215 horsepower full of muscle.
Yeah.
It's just yeah.
It's so good.
It's a really good, fun, and like every scene has a quote. Like even the scene where they're on the baseball field where not a lot happens and the kid's like, hey, will you at least go out that way so we can get away?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll say a prayer for your ass.
Yeah.
It's just like all around like a good scene.
At the very least, I think this one out of the 4 movies that we picked definitely kind of has the most. I think I've already said this, so I might be a broken record at this point, but I think it captures all elements of not only the high school experience, but like coming of age, growing up into adulthood,
The
kind of like
70s.
like what the world entails for you after high school, what the world entails for you when you're going into high school. I feel like it feels the most comprehensive in terms of like this is life, you know?
Yeah, and from a filmmaking perspective, the way it's shot, the way it's edited, the soundtrack especially, it captures the era. You know, like everything that's talked about, yeah, there's a lot of hazing stuff, and like that would be super problematic if it happened today.
Yeah.
But it's what happened.
Yeah.
Like that's how the 70s were.
Yeah.
So we have that as a time capsule forever.
It's also funny talking about this when we also mentioned 2 John Hughes movies.
Yeah.
Because Linklater mentioned specifically he made this to be like an inverse of a John Hughes movie.
Exactly.
'Cause
And
he
it
was-
is.
Yeah.
It has a very
Low stake,
unique,
like
low stake
the characters
view.
just driving around in a car.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
a hangout movie. I think
I'm
Matt
struggling
described it
to find who
perfectly.
you're talking
And I
about.
think it's
I'll
I
look
think
it
it's interesting because I think this movie does a very interesting job of both looking back at the time that it's set in, and again, this is the only movie that we picked that it takes place in a different time than when it was made, and I think it does an interesting job of both looking back at the past in a very real and very grounded sense, in a very kind of like realistic sense, but also having that kind of rosy colored glasses where like, you know, you're kind of like being in high school was cool. Being in high school was the worst point of my life. Like, I feel like it does a good job of giving us both.
I'm sorry, his
These
name in
kids
the
and their
movie
phones.
was Don Johnson. It's this guy.
I knew you were talking about.
Oh,
And
yeah.
You were talking
I have
about.
no idea
He's
who
the
you're-
guy who looks like he'd be the bully, but he's not.
He's
Oh, like
not.
the
He's
kind of
just like
curly
a,
top kind of guy?
No, but he's best friends with him. The shorter guy who's with him.
Too many characters.
Yeah, I know it's
I think
it's
I'm
too
just
tough.
forgetting.
He's
No,
Don.
he's like one of the jocks.
Yeah, he's one of the football guys.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This is one of my favorite films.
And
So
you thought we were talking about Pickford. That's who you thought.
yeah,
I love.
he's great.
I love.
Well,
I think you're at the wrong address,
Man.
man.
Hey man, I think you're at the wrong address.
I was having a field day. I was having a field
Well,
day.
it's funny
you're
for
about
Pickford.
an hour early. You got the wrong house.
It's
My
funny for
bad,
Pickford
man.
because he was supposed to have a bigger role. but
Yeah.
they cut him in favor of McConaughey.
Yeah, they did.
That's pretty funny.
And again,
I'm a
the
little
most-
upset about that. I gotta be real.
One of the most
I love
relatable
McConaughey.
scenes in this
No.
movie for me is when they're smoking weed in the room and the dad knocks on the door and there's an
Yeah.
absolute panic to get the smell out and all he
Yeah.
does is spray a little bit of air freshener
Yeah.
and the
I
dad
think they, like,
walks
go like
in
this, too.
and you could see on his face he's like, yeah, they were smoking weed in here. Like the dad knows,
Yeah.
but they're still trying to cover it up because they're in high school.
Yeah.
And it's that
No, and
like,
Slater just has like the baggie on his
Yeah.
yeah. like, put it away.
put it away.
He's like,
He's
Were
like,
you gonna
"What?"
Kevin? Were you gonna have a party here tonight? No, I don't know what you're talking about.
all the
Unpack the car, sweetie. We're not going anywhere. And then the kids start coming to the door,
Yeah, and he just
And
opens
the
the door.
dad
and he's
just
like,
and the one
But he
nerdy
loves
dance
it,
kid
too.
And they just turn
rings the
away.
doorbell. Yeah.
yeah, he's like, jeez.
Hey, Big Red, Aerosmith tickets, 2 weeks. Don't forget. Why
Yeah.
don't you should ditch these losers and hop in with us, but that's fine. Come to the water tower tonight. There's so many McConaughey lines. I don't know. I'm
No, he's
rambling, but
great.
this
Yeah.
it's such a good
Yeah.
capture of high school, and I think it fits. I think what's really interesting about our 4 films is that Ferris Bueller is really the only one that doesn't hit on the high school tropes and the high school idea.
It's very about people in high school, but very much so about people that like. Just it's not about high school.
No.
It's about not
They're
being
just
about
high school aged
But
kids.
this movie
Yeah.
kind of hits some of that too, where like, yeah, it's about high school, but we don't see much in the school. Like school lets
Well, no,
out
'cause
in the
it's
summer,
summer.
Yeah.
and it's not about high school, and it kind of bridges the gap between like 10 Things and Pretty in Pink, which take place in the high schools, and Ferris Bueller, which is very much about out of the high school.
Yeah, I think Dazed and
And it
Confused
comes in.
and that are similar.
Yeah.
Because they're both about, people that are in high school and experiencing high school and them trying to get out of high school. But the experience of being in high school is still integral
And
to
there's
the
some
story.
middle school
Yeah.
stuff too. I mean, like the middle
Yeah,
school
yeah.
kids having to get their brother's car to get out, and Ben Affleck gets
Yeah.
the shotgun pulled on him.
Yeah.
Like
That's so funny.
So
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, it's about high school, but it's not. It's about the relationships and the coming of age at various different stages, which is intimidating to think about making a creation that's going to capture the young high school and the old high school and bring it all together. And it does that. And I think that's the best compliment I can give it. It's a very complete film. And if you haven't seen it, go see it.
Great movie.
Yeah, it's
Get
a great
couple
watch.
friends, couple
Yeah.
beers.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
It's a night.
In
it's
fact,
a night.
all these 4 movies,
Yeah.
you should watch if you haven't.
Yeah,
They're all
no, 100%.
very fun.
All a
fun
good time.
movies.
All a good
Yeah.
time.